Like no one has ever made me cry the way he made me cry whenever we were dealing with the random shit that we were going through.
Don't feel like there's an elephant in the room though?
I felt very emotional with that.
How do you think you handled it? Did you handle it the way that you should have looking back, or like just tell us about it?
Mine is going back to like any altercation with Frank, honestly.
Okay, let me figure out, how do I make him understand why you literally left? Drama and jealousy, our favorite topics.
Our favorite topics.
Dealing with drama and jealousy. So drama and jealousy in the workplace, or drama and jealousy
Anything. How do you,
with your friend circle?
You would assume you'd handle it the same way. Yeah.
I would think so. But I think that,
let's have an example. Anyone have a recent example of drama or jealousy?
It's hard for me to think about it like a recent example.
Right.
Mine is going back to like any altercation with Frank, honestly.
Yeah.
Because that was very dramatic.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thankful now. It's been months since we've dealt with kind of that type of energy in the workplace. That was the only thing, I swear, I kid you not, within all of these years, I felt very emotional with that. Like no one has ever made me cry the way he made me cry whenever we were dealing with the random shit that we were going through. But that was, or
even like the podcast topics.
Yeah, dramatic, right?
Yeah.
Like very controversial things that literally got us heated. And then now we're just like, it's back to normal. Like everything, even with us, like, I don't think we've ever
Does it still feel like there's an elephant in the room though?
No, I actually don't think so. Like I feel like we've had a lot of discussions after that fact. And then we were, even this morning, he was like, the weird thing about it is that I think we're friends. I'm like, Frank, you just said we're friends. Like I wanted myself to hear that coming out from you because I thought it was cool.
But okay, put yourself back into that position of one of the situations that you guys had, whether it was on the podcast or after the fact.
Yeah.
How do you think you handled it? Did you handle it the way that you should have looking back, or like just tell us about it?
Well, so after the fact, we've had very, again, controversial discussions where that was it was a huge moment because I walked out that one podcast, right?
Yes.
It was just like, I had it up to here with this shit.
Yeah.
I wasn't here.
You weren't, I was. And at that point I was like, you verbally said it. You said,
I'm going to walk out.
I'm going to walk out. And then it's like your brain said, let's walk out. And you were like, I'm going to walk out. And then you walked out and I was like, huh. And so I was just as confused, angry, frustrated, all of it.
Was this a live one as well or no?
No,
Thank God.
Thank goodness.
No. Oh my God. I forgot about the live ones.
Remember?
Yeah, that was awful.
Live.
Don't do that. But I just was like, okay, let me figure out, how do I make him understand why you literally left? Because of everybody, you're the highest you're the friendliest, you're always with such energy. And so for you to get up, pissed off visibly and leave.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I can't get up and leave because then he's going to be like, I won. That's just how I saw it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, how do I explain to him so that he sees your perspective? Yeah. Because although, yes, I'm feeling the same way as you, I was seeing both sides. Yeah. Right. And I think for anybody that looks back on that podcast, they probably would just get as frustrated as both of us. Oh, right. Yeah. So that's all. I was like, okay, how do I have him realize what he was saying just doesn't sit well?
Yeah.
And why it didn't sit well with you. Although I'm not you, I'm sure I didn't go as far as I should have with explaining it, but go ahead and explain your side of the story.
I mean, it was very dramatic because I think at that point I had been, for a woman, just really working at not necessarily just like going back into the conversation. It was whether men and women would survive if everything else failed, would men and women survive? And his separately.
Separately.
And so his statistics really it really aggravated me because for me as a woman, I don't want to think that I can't do it alone. Right. Because I like to think that I am a very independent woman, but I know well knowingly that I do get a lot of help from people. But then for him to be like, yeah, you're going to only survive for 2 weeks and that's it. You're done. And I was like, excuse me? Yeah. Like I could survive in 2 weeks because I feel like I'm just built differently in my head. Right. And then there was nothing that would get to him, like nothing that I would say. I had no comeback in a way where he would understand. And so to me at that point, it was very dramatic. And so that from that stemmed into other altercations with him and I in regards to our business and our work and how we're like running things. And so we really butted heads on the ways that we worked. And so it was hard for me because for the years I've been working with you guys, like it was always a open book. Like we can discuss things very openly. We would understand, we would respect each other. But with him, it was different. And I couldn't help but think it was because he was a man and I couldn't work with him. And it sucked because I want to work with all diverse people, like men included, right? And so like I couldn't understand like why
the women.
No, I have a
reason why Sabs is no longer here.
Yeah, Sabs is gone. I'm just kidding. And he's left us. No,
Molly kicked him out of the podcast.
I walked out of the podcast with him too.
I'm just kidding.
But just I just now fast forward a year or a few, like a good 6 or 7 months, we've actually been working side by side with each other. I've learned to understand how he's wired. And so even if like, for example, I'll get really annoyed or frustrated, still, it's not like I don't get frustrated with him. I do get annoyed with him, but I'll be very open on why I am frustrated. Like, Frank, why are you checking my mail and like not reading it or some shit like that? And he'll be like, oh, fuck. I'll do that. And he doesn't do it again. And I'm like, Frank, I told you already, like multiple times. He's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I forgot. So it's just like little things like that still kind of annoy me as his like a business partner or whatever. But I've now learned how he works rather than like just resisting and then trying to, I don't know, we have a different expectation when we understand who the person is and how he's run rather than just like putting him off. I don't know. That's like the only thing that felt very dramatic in the workplace within this past year. Yeah. Like I would go home and cry literally to Charles and be like, I can't believe I'm like frustrated. Like I've never felt this way. Like Sandra has never made me feel this way except once, but we've already got over that. Yeah. Like we've already gone over that. So
yeah, I feel like that case in particular took a while, that conversation, because I remember we also went out to lunch.
Yes. Sorry. I'm just like thinking back to like how much time we spent after the fact talking about it.
Yep. I know.
You know, like it's laughable now.
Absolutely.
Because
but the thing is that Frank was also somebody that was so new to our group
that we were like, who the F are you?
Yeah, who is this person? Right. What is he all about? And everything that he was putting forward was such a like shock,
different energy
to the dynamics that we had, which all in all, I think that it was good to some degree, even though I know that you had your challenges with it. But I think that there has been a lot of really great things in having, Frank as a partnership to a lot of the things. So I think that was good. It was just something difficult for us to get used to. And that conversation in particular had a lot of residual effects. It did. But I remember we went out for lunch and we had sushi where we had the entire conversation all over again to try to have a better understanding of where he was coming from and, the thought process that we had with that thought that he was so strong about. And so I think he was able to catch himself and like, okay, let me try to kind of make this up a little bit as well. So
yeah, I mean, that is definitely drama. What I call it. I'm like, and to me, I'm like, I don't necessarily think it was jealousy at any point. It was just like, why are we working against each other in that moment in time?
Yeah. And I think that it made it so easy to talk and sit in the drama.
Yeah.
Because for me, I'm not going to say for everybody, but for me, if I went home and told someone about what happened,
I'm feeding that more.
I'm feeding it, but also they were like, what the, like,
who is this guy?
I'd be pissed off too. Or even like seeing the clips on the Instagram or whatever it was, like people were like, who is this guy? You know, like, and so it was like, I was feeding into it of like, that's right. You know, I'm right. He's wrong.
Yeah.
So I think that helped my situation and feeling justified for being so angry.
Yeah.
But I think that it's such a, I wouldn't say extreme example, because what he was saying was clearly, it's black or white.
Yeah.
You either agreed with him or you didn't. And for the most part, women are going to be like, absolutely fucking not.
Yeah.
You know? So I think that it was so easy, but also so extreme of an example that I don't think a lot of people deal with that type of drama.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there is some form of that in other ways.
I would much rather have this drama than any other drama.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? I
Because
mean,
then you can chalk it up to, you know, well, that's Frank's opinion and he's really strong about it. At the end of the day, really, what can you do if somebody, because you said like, I wanted to try to make him believe, but it's like, you can't, you really can't. That's just something that he's,
Yeah.
you know, if he believes so strongly about, and you have to, I don't know, be able to still work
with him, with his,
or not just with him. This just goes with anybody. Anybody that contradicts your own beliefs or your thoughts, like, what are you going to do? Try to force them to believe what you believe?
Right.
That's something that I don't think happens overnight. If it even gets to that, they change their mind.
Yeah.
You just have to learn how to coexist.
Yeah. So
But you guys have done a great job.
Yeah.
You guys have done a great job.
look how far we've gone. Look how far we've grown, Sandra.
Seriously.
and he's not on the podcast.
And he's still not on podcast.
For anybody that has questions as to why this group got smaller, Molly kicked Frank and Sabs out.
I sure did.
I'm just kidding.
Anyways, I mean, enough about that. I mean, have you guys dealt with any drama or jealousy within the last recent months? I mean, now that you've been handling a lot of Fenix's work as the interim CEO, has there been anything that escalated within our company that you're like, holy crap, I need to mitigate right now?
I mean, there's nothing that really stands out, but obviously working with different personalities that I didn't hire, you know?
Yeah.
Because there's a difference between hiring for your team. And so I came into this with already like a already built team.
Yeah.
And so everybody had been hired prior to me ever being involved. And so it was like, now I have to get and understand these different dynamics and these different personalities that I had nothing to do with.
Yeah.
And so it was like, you know, like
You are like the stepmom in this situation.
kind of, yeah, right. And so it was like, there's females on the team that have a different level of emotion than I care to like partake in, right? And so it was like understanding that, but also understanding like, okay, there could be drama between them, and now I have to make sure that I have enough influence that if I talk to them about it, like it actually gets fixed. So I'm trying to think of something that maybe stood out.
When I think about little like petty things or like drama specifically that I remember you dealing with after getting into this role was the whole trash can scenario. Like something so small that I could not believe that this was like drama that we were dealing with.
Yeah, which, you know what, neither employees are with us anymore. So I just, that was a quick example that I think I have removed from my memory, but it just... Something happened in the field, and a veteran rep and a new one came into, something happened. Someone drew a trash can onto a side-by-side, and it became this massive thing. And
massive thing.
Massive
It
thing.
was so interesting.
Yes, massive thing that I was like,
What
I
is
spend
going?
more time on? Like, I'm confused. And so everyone was like dwelling in the drama. And so I was like, okay, like, let's dwell in the drama. And so I was having conversations with different business owners, trying to like, what would you do? Let's mitigate this. And they're like, I'll be involved with you. And I was like, okay, like it became this big thing. And then you really chalk it up to it was a trash can drawn by a marker on a side-by-side. And so before I involved Sabastian, I was like, I'm going to figure it out because I'm the new one, right?
Yeah.
And so then I could tell him, like, don't worry, it was fixed. We're good. Everyone's happy. And so it became this whole thing. And, like, we had them both confront each other and, like, they were sticking to their stories. And then I was like, okay, at this point, I got to involve Sabs. Called Sabs, and he, like, kind of chuckled. And he was like, hold on, let me get this straight.
Seriously.
This has to do with someone that's new, that we don't know anything about, is claiming that a trash can, which we don't know if it was actually a trash can, was drawn on someone's side-by-side. And when they were asked about it, the other person denied it. And then you start to like, wait.
Exactly.
I jumped into this whole like drama field of things, and I was just so adamant about it was more to it, right?
Yeah.
And so then you start to think like, hold on, there isn't more to it. That is fucking it.
Yeah.
And he was like, what I would have done is I would have sat them there, said, hey, did you mean to draw it? No. Okay. Do you think that maybe you perceived it in a different way than it should have been? Yes. Okay. We're good. Put on your big girl panties and let's go to work.
Yeah.
And I was like,
and that's how you overcome drama.
and that's how I could have saved 7 hours of my day.
Yeah.
Literally by having that conversation. And I was like, okay, this is how you learn, right? Like I thought I'm going to fix it because I'm new and I'm well equipped with this kind of, I don't know, whatever. And it just, so much drama that I was like, I could have just stepped back and like, what is really the facts here?
What is the root of the issue?
Yeah. As opposed to like dwelling and like trying to defend one side, you know, and it was a whole thing. So
Yeah, it was a whole thing.
what about you,
so
Sandra?
much drama.
I don't know. I'm trying to think. Somebody help me to remember some of this stuff.
When two employees were not happy that they weren't invited to the conference when there was clear metrics set.
Yeah. That definitely was
Dramatic.
And
can stemmed from a little bit of jealousy from the newer people.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. The reason why I would consider it dramatic is because there are very clear, well, let's back up a little bit. I think that it was a lot of the side conversation and more so like gossiping.
The stories being built.
Yeah,
100%.
exactly. The stories that were being built around this is to me what created drama. Because in all of these scenarios, I think that there are valid things that need to be addressed. Because you think about the scenario with the trash can.
Right. Smoke, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Like,
address.
There's like, I think that was so petty. It was just so dumb. But again, if it's not addressed in the right way, all of the minor rooted issues will end up blowing up in a different way that you could have avoided if you just address the scenario, even though you think it's a lame scenario. Same thing with this here. Yeah. I think that that's what created a lot of drama, because then everybody else too might, depending on the level of influence too that they might have on those other people, they might jump on that bandwagon too
and go with the flow of what they're saying.
And then all of a sudden there's this story of, favoritism or
not to quote our recent review.
I know, but the truth is that it is very clear that a lot of these things are reserved for people who, have
misinterpreted.
Well,
no.
The people that had been invited, we have probationary periods, right? So it's like we set these things in stone so that these issues don't happen. But then at the end of the day, just making sure that these are clear, like to our newer people, even though that there are going to be stories like outside, like when we're out of here, like we don't know what's going on back there. We have zero clue what the conversations are like. And so whenever we have just like groups of people who are newer, who are creating these kinds of different scenarios in which they're not invited because they're not part of the team, I'm like, no, you are part of the team. You just have to hit certain metrics, especially in the recruiting department, right? Like we just don't invite everyone for the sake of favoritism. Like, no, it's not. We don't invite everyone for the sake of inviting them. We literally have standards to hit, right? So
yeah. The thing too is that there are other people that do get invited that don't necessarily have the same standards to go. And I think that that's where drama is created around that. But the thing is that we can't control what other offices, have as criteria for their team members to go. And so I think that there was a little bit of a lack of understanding there.
I get what you're saying.
But I think for me, biggest learning lesson was that these things need to be a lot more clear. Mm-hmm. So even though I consider it drama that happened, again, because of all of the side conversation and all of the gossip that went with it, I don't think that is okay. But like you said, wherever there is smoke, there is fire. Biggest thing for me was learning, okay, well, I guess we have to get a lot clearer on certain things so that people don't have those stories going on. And then that there is a better understanding of who gets to go to certain events. And so, yeah, that was dramatic. It was dramatic and very frustrating, but it does happen. Yeah. It does happen. So big thing, just be clear, communicate better. And then the other thing too, in talking about it with Sabs, with everything else that went on in that season with, certain people leaving and all of that. I remember talking to Sabs about it. And one of the things he said, well, who has the bigger influence here, which is a good wake up call, even in the conversations that we've had about, okay, just getting more involved with the team and building relationship.
Right.
And granted, we can't control everything, but I think that we can influence. And so it just takes a lot of effort and initiative, which sometimes can be hard, or at least has been difficult for me when, there's so much going on and there's new things to focus on, but it's all part of the job. Like you still have to find a way to increase that bandwidth to have that influence with your team.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That was a good one.
Yeah. I think it takes two to tango. So if people are listening and they're like, well, I don't really have like work drama, but I have, personal drama or whatever it is, like keep in mind, you have to kind of look at the perspective of like, are they maybe seeing things that you aren't seeing? Are they interpreting what you're doing, whether it's you and someone else or you and your boyfriend, whatever it is? It takes two to tango. So it's not just their fault. You have to look at how did you contribute to how they're perceiving what you did or what they did, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And I think that what's the word? I think it's important to know that no one is intentionally trying to create drama. Hopefully, right? I mean, maybe there is people that are still immature. I'm looking at it in the lens of like, hey, if this is work drama or personal drama, no one's intentionally trying to create drama. If you are, you're immature and you need to fucking stop and go live under a rock. But no one's intentionally trying to create drama. It's just how they're perceiving it. And
how they're reacting to it.
And how they're reacting and how you're reacting to it. So if you ever have drama, look at it from both sides and take a step back. And always, like Sabs always asks, like, hey, if I was raised the way that person was raised and I was in their situation, would I see the situation any different? Would I react any differently? Yeah. Probably not, right? So I think that those are important things to also keep in mind if you're involved with any drama or jealousy or anything like that.
Yeah.
Good point, Dre. Snaps for Dre.
What time is it? Drama.
What about drama or jealousy, like even with friendships? Like at what point does an issue become drama?
That's, I mean,
like in friendships or in...
Yeah.
Well, young Molly would most likely ghost her friends. Young Molly. Like you could just be like, we're not friends anymore.
Yeah.
Adult Molly, now Molly, would address it, would talk about it out loud. Like if there was any issue. A big thing that could have been very dramatic for me in a way with my friendship was being very direct and straightforward with one of my girlfriends who was very self-deprecating. And it allowed our circle of friends to do the same thing. And so because I see her as an influential person in our group, like I had that conversation with her, like, hey, I just have to tell you this because it really bothers me as a person when you talk shit about yourself in front of people around like our group of friends, because that allows them to do the exact same thing, which then I've heard, and I would kind of separate myself from the group because I was just like, I don't want to handle like these little petty little remarks based off of just how you think about yourself, because I see you completely different. And so she now comes back to me and she like thanks me for this conversation, because it wasn't that she wasn't aware of how she was showing up, but now she is. And so to me, it's just like in circles of friends, adult Molly would be like, this is an issue I see. If you can fix it, great. If you can't, like, we can try working on it. Cool. If you need any help, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Have you ever dealt with, like, what was the hardest thing in your friendships maybe recently that you might have dealt with? It doesn't have to necessarily be jealousy, I guess, but more so dramatic in any way.
I have an example just because of the phase,
young Dre and adult
the
Dre
phase that I'm in. Like all of my friends, all my closest friends they all got married in the same year, and they've all gotten pregnant in the same year, and they were all pregnant together, and then they now have babies. So it's always been comments to me about like, come on, Dre, like you're the only one that hasn't blank, right? Because when they got married, I wasn't engaged. And then when they got pregnant, I was engaged, but they're like, come on, get pregnant so we can all have babies together. And then when we would go and, I'm very intentional when spending time with my friends. So I'm always I hate to use those words. I like to reach out to my friends and like, hey, let's set up some time to go to dinner. Or like this weekend, I was like, hey, they all have kids. Why don't we set up gingerbread houses and go look at Christmas trees, right? Because I don't want to be perceived as, oh, well, she doesn't have kids, so she probably doesn't want to hang out with us. It's like, no, I love my friends, right?
Yeah.
But I think that once the conversation turns into nothing but things that I don't have 2 cents to give, because there's no reason to be giving 2 cents about something I don't have.
Yeah.
Kind of like the get advice from people who are where you want to be. Why would you ask someone that hasn't had a kid about pregnancy, right? So for me, I'm aware enough to like, I'm going to observe more than talk. And so they perceived that as, oh, she's probably really mad because all we do is talk about pregnancy and babies and this and that. And I was even confronted by one of my friends of like, hey, is everything okay? You seemed really quiet. And I was like, no. It's just that when you guys talk about things that I don't have experience in, there's no reason for me to talk about it, because then you become that asshole that's talking about,
shits up your, up your butt.
Those people that give you
advice
about your kids. And it's like, where are your kids at?
Yeah.
It's like, well, I don't have any. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
I actually had that conversation with my parents about like, get advice from people who are where you want to be. And they started laughing because one of their close friends is a marriage therapist or counselor. And she's been divorced 3 times.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh my God, she's the perfect example. But nonetheless. So I was confronted and, I just explained like, hey, from my point of view, like there's no reason for me to be talking about that. So I am going to be more reserved, more quiet, but it's not that I don't feel any certain way. Obviously, if I was talking to someone about businesses, they wouldn't have a lot to say either. So it's like, I just want you to know, like, yeah, I appreciate that you've brought it up, but it's not that I'm holding anything against you. Obviously I would prefer to talk about something else, but that doesn't mean you guys should stop talking about those things. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
I get that.
So yeah, so I'm in that phase of like, now everyone's thinking about having their second baby and they're like, come on, Dre, get married because we want you to also be pregnant. It's like, I'm going to do it on my own terms.
Yeah.
I don't care how much pressure or whatever you guys put on me. I'm going to do it on my own terms because that's what's going to make me happy. I'm not going to rush anything. So the little like comments and stuff, yeah, they get to me, but I mean, it's understandable.
Yeah.
If I was in their perspective, right? So
yeah, they're seeing it.
Sandra, what about you?
Closing statements. It's important too.
Are you talking about like with friendships and stuff?
Yeah.
I honestly, I really try to stay away from friendship drama.
Yeah.
Like it's just in anywhere actually, even in the workplace.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I even remember when we started to build our internal team, it's like, we really like gossip. No, it has literally no place in here at all. And I tried to do the same thing with my friendships. I've said this before. It's like the way that you talk about somebody with anybody, like it just, I don't know, it's just very telling. Yeah, it's very telling. So I try to be very, very careful. I have had scenarios with my friendships where I've said this before, like I have lost certain friendships, and in the midst of the drama or whatever caused that to happen, I think that I've been very reflective of like, okay, well, what part did I take in this for this to happen? Yeah. And so it's something that I try to be very mindful of when it comes to that. But I hate drama. I hate conflict. Like I'm just, no, thank you.
Yeah. And I feel bad because I'm such a person that if like I sense the drama, I like remove myself.
Yeah.
And for some people might see that as like, oh, she doesn't care or whatever. They're going to create their own stories about it. But I'm like, nah. Get me out of here.
Get me out.
I'm walking out. I am walking out.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause like you said, like I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
And like, really, is that going to serve anybody to like jump into the drama circle? And unless there's something constructive, but usually if the drama is happening right then and there, everyone's emotionally charged. And so it doesn't matter what you say, because really at the end of the day, all you're worried about is what did they say? Cause I'm going to respond to that.
Yeah.
So I remove myself, and I know that's a problem. I should confront it right then and there. But
I
you guys were like, no.
Yeah. I do try to just avoid it, because then I overthink certain things too. And then there's so much time and brain effort and energy that's spent in this scenario. And it's like, I don't want to use my brain power for this right now. And of course, if they are friendships or relationships that do matter, I'm like you said, I'm going to address it to try to nip in any kind of drama.
Because there's like resentment that can follow, which I also do not want.
But I think it has a lot to do too with how you're feeling the drama. Like you were saying, I didn't realize that in me getting involved with this whole trash can scenario, I was making this a bigger thing. So I think that that's just one of the things that you have to be mindful of, because an issue can become drama without you realizing it if you don't just get to the core of the issue before it becomes something that is dramatic. It's involving more people, then stories get created, gossip gets spread, all of that. So I think that just address the root of the issue if it needs to. But if it is something that you really just don't need to be a part of, then really just exit stage left.
Irish goodbye.
Yeah, Irish goodbye. But if it's important, address it. If not, don't. And just don't let it become more drama than it needs to be. Yeah.
Word.
Thanks for listening. Catch us on the next one.
Peace out.